Well, Jack, I guess one more time, it's just you and I doing that thing. And Jack would probably say something like, "This year, Christmas will be ours!"
Yes, I'm with the one and only Danny Elfman, talking about the 25th anniversary of Nightmare Before Christmas and some big shows coming up. What does that mean when there's 25 years of this and it's kind of taken on a life of its own, obviously?
It's just hard to believe, really. It's like, wow, a quarter century, bam. And the fact that this was a movie that I never thought would have a life because, it kind of came and went pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it developed a second life is so lucky and extraordinary and rare.
Yeah.
I'm very much aware that that's kind of a 1 in a million chance with movies, that there actually is a second chance for a movie to catch on again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just one of the really great surprises in my life.
When did you know it was taking on that life? At what point?
I was in Tokyo with Tim Burton for the premiere of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and we did what we usually do when we're in Tokyo, which is go toy shopping.
Yeah.
And in all the toy stores was all this Jack Skellington and Sally and Oogie Boogie, and he was like, "I've never even seen any of this merchandising." And then it turned out there was a club there that was kind of inspired by Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was just kind of a surprise that there was all this interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we became aware of, this thing is kind of developing a life of its own.
How much have you enjoyed that celebration of the music, of what you do, of the whole project? What's that like for you as an artist that's such a big part of this?
Well, it's just amazing because, I walked away from performing all the way back in '95 from my band, and I didn't really see myself as performing again. And when the idea of singing some Jack Skellington tunes came up, it was for the Elfman Burton show at Royal Albert Hall in London. That's the first time I did the 15 suites. And it's kind of funny how that happened because when my agent, he first came to me with the idea, and he said, "Would you maybe sing a couple songs from Nightmare in this Elfman Burton thing?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess so." But as always, I don't think about it. And then it was almost a year later. Now I've actually spent months putting together all these suites, and I was working on Nightmare, and I called him. I said, "I didn't say I was going to sing, did I?" He goes, "Yeah, you did." I go, "Well, cancel that right now. He goes, "It's too late. It's already advertised." I already said I was going to do it, and then I definitely had like second thoughts about it. And I said, "I can't do this." And I started practicing the songs, and I realized I've never sung these before as a whole song.
Mm-hmm.
I only sang them in the studio, which bits and pieces. But it's because of that I'm enjoying doing it, because I have no connection to I've been doing these songs for years, and it's not like dragging up old material. For me, coming out and singing these live was fresh, and it was also fun going out on stage and doing songs in another character. It's not like, oh, I've got to figure out what am I feeling, what am I doing. It's like this is Jack Skellington.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I'm feeling or thinking. This is Jack, and that was fun. I've never done that before. I never did theater.
Yeah.
I never really had that kind of experience of coming out as a character. And I'm going, I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to walk out. I know what the character is, and I can just kind of embody that for the songs. And it's a character I loved when I did it. I never expected to have any life with afterwards. And so reviving that character after all those years was really, after London, I said, okay, I can do this. I actually really enjoyed it.
And I can tell, I can feel, I'm sure the audience can tell too, that freshness and that liveliness of it. Sitting there in the audience, I saw you do it originally with the Burton Elfman show, I think at the Nokia at the time. When you first came on stage and you started dancing, it's such a joy as someone who's followed your career this long to see you up there having a good time, enjoying your thing.
It takes me back to what I did before Oingo Boingo. That's why that's kind of fun, because before Oingo Boingo was the Mystic Knights. 7 years I did cabaret. They called it avant-garde musical cabaret. I don't know if that's correct, but it was this crazy 12-piece cabaret act, and in it I did a lot of Cab Calloway pieces. That's how I kind of learned music, was transcribing Cab Calloway and Duke Ellington. And I used to do 3 or 4. I was obsessed with Cab Calloway. So the Oogie Boogie thing is definitely an homage to Cab.
Yeah.
And doing that live, I never got to do that with Oingo Boingo. It's taking me all the way back to like when I was practically a kid.
Mm-hmm. Where did that love come from, that love for that kind of jazz, that 30s jazz, Cab Calloway?
You know, I've always been kind of extreme in my musical tastes. And I went through a period in my 20s where I definitely was totally unaware of what was happening. This would be like in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what culturally was happening. I didn't know. I didn't care. You know, later at the end of the decade, I was like, oh, wow, there's some cool stuff. David Bowie. There's this guy named David Bowie out there. And it's like, yeah, he's been around for 10 years. I didn't know anything. In my head, I lived in 1933, New York, and I didn't want to even perform material unless I'd written it for the Mystic Knights. I didn't want to perform anything written after 1938. Mm-hmm. That was my time slot, 33 to 38. And Harlem Club, New York, that's just where I went. That's where I lived.
How much do you love this guy, Jack? When you're in there embodying him and kind of his innocence and wonder, what does that do to you, to your heart when you're bringing him to life?
Well, I mean, it's great. I always loved Jack. You know, when I wrote the songs with Tim 25 years ago, it was literally like, we don't know how to put together a musical. There's no guidebook. We just know we didn't want it to be Broadway. Didn't want it to feel Broadway. Yeah. As he started showing me the images and telling me the story, it's like he had all these great pictures. And he would come over to my house and just say, well, and if this happens, I said, just tell me the story like you'd be telling it to a nephew. You know, he didn't have kids yet, just like you're telling a bedtime story. Mm-hmm. And he would tell me the story, and I would hear the song. And I realized as I was writing it that I was writing a lot from my own perspective, because this was the period towards the end of Oingo Boingo. And I was kind of the king of my own little world. Yeah. I felt very close to Jack and Christmas Land and Halloween Land and this desire to kind of find something else in his life. So I was definitely writing through Tim's lens and his story, but I was also writing from my own feelings of what it feels like when you really want to get out of where you know it so well, and everybody loves you, but you need something else. And so I was writing both as Jack Skellington and from exactly how I felt emotionally at the time. Mm-hmm. So it meant a lot. His was a character that was very close to my heart. And there was a night when I'd written all the songs, and Tim and I went in the studio, a little studio, and we needed to record demos because they were going to start animating to these songs. And so I recorded all the parts except for Sally. Yeah. The little voices, Jack's parts, the Oogie Boogie, everything. So they can have something to start to put together. And it was weird. I think it was during those demos I realized, I think I'll kill somebody before I let them sing this part. But it was Tim and I had never spoken of who was going to actually sing songs. And at the end, I kind of came out and said, Tim, I'm getting pretty attached to these songs. They're pretty personal. He said, don't worry, you got it.
And to have Halloween attached to you again.
Well, again, that's like the crazy thing, because I did 17 years of Halloween shows with Oingo Boingo, and all of a sudden, I found myself, oh my God, people are coming up to me and say, I'll see you on Halloween. I go, how do you know you'll see me on Halloween? It's like, I may not be here. It's like, and I kind of hated the fact that it was becoming another thing.
Right.
So, 2 years ago, I said, I don't want to do it anymore. And I meant it. And last year, we did it in, it was actually great, Mexico City, Dia de los Muertos. Yeah. And that was fantastic. But then they came back to me with, it is the 25th anniversary, 25. It's like, oh, I should do it again.
Yeah.
Want more extra? Hit the subscribe button and the bell and never miss a video.